When did you first hear about SOG? Did you know what it was before you ended up joining?
Yes and no. No one, even the guys in fifth group, because we were a top secret operation. You know, there were lots of rumors that floated around, but no one ever confirmed those rumors. I mean, at times there were actually operations within SOG that were not common knowledge throughout the rest of SOG.
Wow. Yeah. Y'all's compartmentalization was on a whole different level. That's amazing stuff hearing about. I mean, the ground guys didn't know what the air program was doing, or the psychological operations program didn't know what they were doing. It just amazing compartmentalization.
And you were pretty well convinced that those non-disclosure statements you had signed were going to, if didn't abide by them. So
let's see here. Did you want to be part of SOG, or just any SF, Green Beret or Ranger or anything else?
actually, I really did want to be part of SOG.
Wow.
You know, I would have been extremely happy to be with any SF assignment, but I wanted to be part of SOG.
Wow, that's amazing that that there were guys like you out there wanting to get in it, especially when you get that first briefing of how dangerous and everything like that. It's amazing. This is a pretty good question. What were typical operations for SOG personnel of FOB3 during the Khe Sanh siege?
Pretty much the same as every other FOB was running at the time. There were not a lot of large scale hatchet force operations. It was primarily at that time we would call spike teams, not recon teams, but the spike teams were being deployed in and out. There was during that early period in early '68, the NVA had not developed the effectiveness of their countermeasures against us, and some of those operations were able to do a little bit more successfully because they really didn't have an organized element that was solely dedicated to denying SOG operations. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Eventually, we learned that they had actually formed a unit specifically to counter SOG missions.
Wow. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
We learned that after the war was over. Now we.
Wow. I mean, some of the I mean, the Marines, they were known during the siege and all that, but I mean, I can't imagine what what y'all were going through. And hearing some of what Pat spoke about on his Sogcast visit was interesting, with the movement of the tanks and the personnel and all that was just astounding to hear about. What was your role when you first experienced combat with SOG?
As was normal in SOG, I was a 1-2 strap hanger on John Smith's team on my first mission. Right after I got to Khe Sanh, I think 3 days after I got to Khe Sanh, I ran my first ST mission with them. I ran 3 missions out of Khe Sanh with Smitty.
And I haven't seen it come up.
Title there, I was the assistant operations officer.
Okay, that's what I was wondering about as well. I haven't seen the question come up, but I'm sure it will. But I'll go ahead and ask because I've been asked about it. Did the STs at Khe Sanh and at Mai Loc, did y'all have team names, or because I've not been able to find, but maybe one or two mentioned team names out of both of those
Some
FOB.
sometimes operations. Once we got to Mai Loc, in addition to kind of an additional duty, I had trained in HF. We actually ran a couple of missions out of Mai Loc. I did with just they were RT missions or snatch missions with just selected members of the Hatchet force. So sometimes you had a kind of an ad hoc ST, so it had no name.
Wow. Okay. That's been I've noticed. I think St. Bear. I think Pat and Lou were Lion, and I've really not seen any of Mai Loc. To be honest, I know a few teams were there before launching, but none of the Mai Loc teams had that I could find.
We had HS at Mai Loc primarily, and we had some teams that would come in and be there temporarily, and then we had some teams obviously that were there only for launch.
Okay. Okay. This is a very interesting question. While public perception of the war is often analyzed from the perspective of U.S. civilians, how did the average Vietnamese feel about the U.S. presence, and how staunch was their opposition to the North? I'm assuming, in your opinion, he meaning.
From what I saw, obviously knowing the history of how the war evolved from the establishment of the DMZ and Eisenhower's refusal to let nationwide elections take place, it created an us and them scenario. Those people who understood what communism was obviously opposed it, but like most populations in most countries, the majority of the people in the countryside really and truly did not have any political opinion one way or another. They simply wanted to continue to exist as they had and not get shot.
Wow.